Stenographer Wray will face a contempt of Congress vote after the GOP turned down Wray's offer to privately view a file that allegedly links the president to a major bribery scheme.
Brooke Singman has the very latest. Brooke.
Hey, good morning, Carly. Todd, that's right. During a call with House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer and Senator Chuck Grassley yesterday, FBI Director Christopher Wray offered the lawmakers the chance to view a redacted version of that key Biden document at FBI headquarters. But Comer says that proposal only made him less confident in the FBI. Listen to this.
He offered us the opportunity to come look at it in a private shift, but he was going to redact it. My experience with getting documents from the FBI when they're redacted, it's all black lines. They don't show anything. We've seen a pattern of Joe Biden, when he was vice president, leaving a country after he talks about foreign aid and foreign policy, and his family members start receiving payments from that company. We saw that in Romania. We've seen that in China. We've seen that in other countries. That would suggest that this allegation has merit.
Comer, after the call, making clear that, quote, anything short of producing these documents to the House Oversight Committee is not in compliance with the subpoena. If the FBI fails to hand over that FD 1023 form as required by the subpoena, the House Oversight Committee will begin contempt of Congress proceedings. But the FBI is defending itself, claiming to be protecting the confidentiality and safety of sources and methods by offering that private viewing of the document despite it being declassified. Now, the FBI is saying that it has, quote, continually demonstrated its commitment to working with the committee to accommodate its request, from scheduling briefings and calls to now allowing the chair to review information in person. The FBI remains committed to cooperating with the committee in good faith.
Your Honor, I object.
And why is that?
Because it's devastating to my case.
Overruled.
Good call.
Today is Thursday, June 1st, 2023. FBI Director Wray confirms the existence of the document accusing Joe Biden of engaging in a criminal bribery scheme. Marjorie Taylor Greene announces the release of more January 6th tapes. Boom, shakalaka. And Julie Kelly, who is absolutely the greatest on this subject, joins the show. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. You remember in the pandemic when there was no food and when the grocery store aisles were empty? Well, guess what? They're getting ready for the next one. The reason why is because the supply chain is weak. It broke. It broke instantly. And it was really hard for you or your family to find the items that were necessary. It was hard for my family to find diapers. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why you have to prepare now. Prepare in times of plenty. My friends at My Patriot Supply can help you out with military-style preparedness. That's why I urge you to grab a 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply, the nation's largest preparedness company. When you order today, you'll save $200 on each kit that you need. Having these kits means your family will stay fed while others stand in food lines. You don't want that to happen. Yikes. Don't delay. Order your 3-month emergency food kit supply and save $200 per kit. It's easy. Go to preparewithbenny.com. Preparewithbenny.com. Fast and free shipping too. Do this today. Don't regret it. Tomorrow, preparewithbenny.com. So people who are unprepared for the maelstrom of a Republican Congress was the FBI, obviously. Now, we've seen the FBI hide and collude and work for Hillary Clinton. Now, how did they do this? They prevented Hillary Clinton and the information of Hillary Clinton going to foreign countries and hoovering up money into the Clinton Foundation. They prevented that information from getting out of the public. They protected her. They stopped the criminal investigations into that. We learned that from the Durham report. We've read to you, line for line, the Durham report as to how they did that. The FBI essentially broke every single protocol and created a protective iron cocoon around Hillary Clinton, a impenetrable dome where Hillary will not be charged for money laundering, for influence schemes, which is, by the way, the greatest corruption in Washington, D.C. This happens in every single great society, whether it be Rome or ancient Greece or today. The powerful people sell out their nations. They're traitors. They're traitors. They collude in order to sell out our power and to sell out our wealth and to sell out our natural resources. Now, what happened was other powerful people inside of Washington, D.C. looked across the bow at Hillary Clinton and said, why not us? Why not us? They're getting filthy rich. The Clinton Foundation is in Arkansas. Why don't we go do this? They're not even going to investigate her in Arkansas. Hey, Sarah Sanders. Hey, district attorney in Little Rock. The Clinton Foundation is still based in Little Rock. Maybe open an investigation? New rules, right? Nonetheless, they looked across the bow, the Bidens, and they said, wait a second. Why can't we get rich doing this? We just sell favors to foreign nations, and then they will, in turn, pay my stupid cokehead son, who happens to be banging his dead brother's widow. Moral guy. Breaking every crack law in the country, including the ones that I passed, remember? Yeah. That's what they said. And you know what? They were right. And the reason they did it is because they saw the FBI protect Hillary. They saw the FBI not investigate the Clinton Foundation and then shutter those investigations in order to essentially coronate Hillary Clinton to become president. Now, that didn't end up happening because of you, because of me. We spoiled, let's just say, the party and put Donald Trump in there instead. However, instead of fulfilling that promise of I'll put you in jail, which is the saddest thing. I'm a big Trump fan, but he promised to put Hillary in jail. He said, because you'd be in jail. Unfortunately, she's not in jail. And those investigations have now been completely shuttered, and all of the evidence has been destroyed. The FBI destroyed all the evidence against the Clinton money laundering schemes. It's gone. Sad to report that to you. That is also an outcome of the Durham report. John Durham told us exactly how this operation worked, and so Joe Biden and his family said, we can do it too. They have the dime store version of it. They have the stupid person version of what the Clintons built. The Clintons had some sophistication to it. They had some good accountants. They hid their money a little bit better. They were zipping around the world on Jeffrey Epstein's Lolita Express. And they were burying that cash in the Seychelles and the Cayman Islands, and the Virgin Islands. Nothing's virgin for long. Bill Clinton lands. Ladies and gentlemen, that's how they did it. The Bidens were just stupider. Now, the Bidens were so stupid, in fact, that our own federal government started to pick up on what was going on. There is a story about how the Biden State Department, the Obama State Department, when Biden was VP, sent a number of cables, concerning cables, being like, hey, what the hell is Joe doing here? He's in charge of China, he's in charge of Ukraine, and his kid is hobnobbing and hoovering up money inside of these nations that he's supposedly in charge of. That's a problem. The Obama State Department straight up said it. We got issues here. We got issues. Ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't just the State Department. Now we know that the FBI, our own FBI, has documentation from a clandestine source saying that Joe Biden himself is caught up in a pay-for-play influence scheme in a country that the FBI was monitoring. Now, what country would that be? I'll spill the beans for you. It's Ukraine. I promise you it's Ukraine. I promise you it's Ukraine. The Bidens went like this. You give me money, and I will give you favorable American policy. That's how it works. And it's how it still works today. Until we get smart and pass laws against this kind of stuff, it's how it still works today in Washington. So the Biden administration is caught up in this new scandal because a whistleblower inside the FBI said this FD 1023 form. And don't get caught in the jargon. I hate jargon. I hate acronyms. I ban them in my house and I ban them on my show. Unless they're super commonly known, like FBI. But FD 1023 is effectively a term that says this is a document from a clandestine source that implies criminal actions by somebody high-ranking in the federal government. That person happens to be Joe Biden. Now, a whistleblower came forward and said there is an FD 1023 that says that Joe Biden received millions, 5 million to be exact, from a foreign country for political favors. And we happen to know, actually, the political favors. Ladies and gentlemen, we've done our research, and we believe with like 99% of surety, and I will play this, I will give you the hard data in the show. I know exactly what this document says. And so does Chuck Grassley, and so does James Comer, because both of them have seen it. Wild. Here we go, baby. Chuck Grassley and James Comer have both seen the document. The FBI bowed its head and allowed, inside of a SCIF, a secure facility, the document to be seen by the chief bulldog Republican investigators. That is breaking news. This is new. They have reviewed the document, and now Grassley and Comer are doing exactly what they should be doing, which is fighting for this document to be made public. Again, we've told you as much as the whistleblower has said thus far. However, I think it's more important to listen to the source. Let's hear from the men who actually have seen this document now. The FBI is bending, and the FBI is beginning to break, and there's a reason for that as well. Go.
We're expecting an update that call did take place at 1:30 p.m. Fox is right now waiting on readouts from the call from the FBI and Rep. Comer's office, as well as Senator Grassley, of course. A source familiar says Director Wray told Rep. Comer that he and Senator Grassley are able to view the FD 1023 form in person in a secure setting, known as an in-camera review. This is just into us right now. The same source is noting that the subpoena specifically asked for Wray to hand over the document to Congress. Comer says even if he sees the document in a secure setting, that does not satisfy the subpoena, as he wanted the document physically delivered to Congress. The FBI has previously indicated it would not physically turn over that document, which could expose sources and methods. Bottom line from all of this, Wray says that Comer and Grassley can see it, but in a secured setting. Comer says he wants it without that stipulation, and Wray's olive branch does not honor the subpoena. So we do know that this call did take place. We're waiting on a readout from it, and that's what we know so far.
Yeah, we had talked to Comer about this a number of weeks ago, and he said that seeing it in a secure location wouldn't be enough, that he wanted to have the actual document in hand.
So there's another way that the FBI could skirt around this, and the FBI is trying in a clumsy manner. And of course, I would never be an FBI apologist here, but how do you protect the Bidens, man? It's like the same thing with cringe Jean-Pierre. How do you speak on behalf of Joe Biden? A guy who's supposed to be talking about like the national debt, and when Corn Pop and Chainsaw came over, they said, you took my applesauce. I had Cheerios in it. What's the problem, man? They slept on a mattress. I had to carry it. What? Like, and then cringe Jean-Pierre has to go out and be like, the president said what he said, and yes, Chainsaw and Corn Pop slept on a mattress. And Joe Biden was carrying that mattress. And he had Cheerios in his applesauce. Like, cringe Jean-Pierre, she has an impossible job. Christopher Wray has an impossible job here. Christopher Wray now has to be the garbage man for the Biden crime family. And that is precisely what he is. An absolute shame that this man got nominated by Donald Trump. An absolute shame. Who suggested the nomination, by the way? It was Chris Christie, who's going to announce his presidential run soon here. So, enjoyable times. Ladies and gentlemen, this document would be redacted heavily. Presumably, you've seen these redacted documents where the lines on the documents are completely black. And that's what they release. These just blackened out documents to protect sources and methods, which is what they always say, which is really code for Democrat. Watch.
Well, to answer that question, Sean, he offered us the opportunity to come look at it in a private shift, but he was going to redact it. My experience with getting documents from the FBI when they're redacted, it's all black lines. They don't show anything. But I'm going to say on this show what we told Director Wray, what Senator Grassley told Director Wray. He and I have already seen the 1023 form. We knew what was in the 1023 form. Until we told Director Wray that, he never even admitted that the form existed. So the level of confidence that we have with Director Wray only went down. It only declined throughout the conversation. So we will go there and look at the redacted document, but we know what's in the document. And the reason we find this allegation credible, not only because of the credibility of the whistleblower, but because we've seen a pattern of Joe Biden, when he was vice president, leaving a country after he talks about foreign aid and foreign policy, and his family members start receiving payments from that company through shell companies that are then laundered down to Biden family members.
Did you catch that? Did you catch that absolute weaponized nuclear uranium-235 bombshell straight into the heart of the FBI? Let me play it back for you, because James Comer, friend of the show, we're working very hard to get Comer on the program. Busy man right now. He's come on the show a couple times. James Comer has a very kindly Southern gentlemanly way of going about these conversations. So let me lay it out explicitly for you. The FBI lied about the existence of this document. Christopher Wray, who's supposed to be good at his job, didn't know that the Republican investigators have already seen the document, that they already had the document. They have it. They know what's in it. And it is only then that Christopher Wray groveled at their feet, admitted that the document was real and that he was hiding it. And that they would only be able to see it if he took one of those black eraser pens, black Sharpies, and scratched it all out. James Comer said that the FBI is lying to Congress. Now, Chuck Grassley, who I know, I interned for Chuck Grassley way back in the day when I was a college Republican. Chuck Grassley, who's gentlemanly as well from the state of Iowa, is the king of oversight. Don't let the old grandfather shtick get past you. Chuck Grassley is a bull in the Senate, and he is the man when it comes to oversight. Chuck Grassley straight up saying, I have the document already. I called their bluffs. The American public must know what's inside of this document because this is one of the most damaging documents in American political history. Go.
We're going to make it public when they get it delivered to us. But if he would read it, he would know that all the excuses that he's giving us, that he wants to protect sources, and that's important to protect sources, but that's not an issue with this document the way I read it, and he ought to come forth. They've got to produce this document. You know, they're up against what the Durham report has said about the shortcomings and the political bias of the FBI, and this is just one more example of them not being forthcoming to the public because the public's business ought to be public.
Chuck Grassley has seen the document. Chuck Grassley is saying there is nothing inside of this document that compromises sources and methods, which again is code. Let me translate that. This is a DC language that is spoken, deep state language. They're speaking deep state, deep Sith. This is the deep Sith language. What is this language? What are they actually saying? It hurts Democrats. That it'll lead to Joe Biden not winning the election in 2024. That's what that means. Sources and methods. That's what that means. We don't want the Constitution to get in the way of us protecting the DNC. Ladies and gentlemen, we know what's inside of this document. We know. We're already well aware. We're well aware because this not only happened once or twice, this happened many times over. The Bidens going through the globe. Flying on Air Force 2, landing in a country. Hunter Biden gets off in a cloud of crack dust and a Russian hooker's unmentionables hanging from his earlobe. And he wanders over. His shirt's all buttoned the wrong way. The buttons are in the wrong loops. He wanders over. He's got mustard stain on his shirt. He's got a smoking crack pipe out of his pocket. It's almost on fire. He's like, give me some money, man. Give me some money, man. And then the Koreans or the Chinese or the Ukrainians or the Turkmenistanis, they're like, okay, I guess give you the money. And that's it. That's how it worked. Hey, man, my dad's vice president. President. Don't you see? Anybody got any Parmesan? That's how it works. That's how it worked. Now, how prolific was the crime family? Well, James Comer dropped an absolute bombshell on us. If you're listening, you can hear it. James Comer said it's not one document. It's not one FD 1023. It's like dozens of them. The network of the FBI, which is global, which is fused with the CIA through the Patriot Act. The CIA is a clandestine agency, so these networks and these webs are global. That these webs were picking up the Bidens and their scams and their schemes all around the world. There are multiple documents. This isn't just one. There are multiple documents that show the Biden family complacency, complicity, and crime family. Listen.
Our specific request, first of all, said we want any Form 1023 dated in August 2020 with the word Biden on it. And you know what they came back and said, Sean? They said, well, that would just be too many documents. We can't possibly prepare all that. So, a light bulb goes off. What do you mean? How many 1023s are there with the word Biden just for 1 month in 2020? Now, this is what we found with the Treasury with the suspicious activity reports. There were hundreds of these indicating potential wrongdoing of the Bidens with respect to financial transactions. Now, the way that I understood the FBI, there are multiple Form 1023s pertaining to Biden. So we had to narrow the focus to say, okay, Biden and the word $5 million.
There are multiple 1023s. Hundreds, the FBI said. James Comer sitting there talking about his direct interactions with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Something you shouldn't lie about on TV. James Comer's not Adam Schiff. I know James Comer. James Comer's an honest man, good man, friend of the show. James Comer is not lying on television. James Comer is not a pencil neck. He's not a watermelon head. James Comer is saying that when he said, hey, give me evidence of the Bidens engaging in pay-for-play around the world, the FBI said, you're going to have to get more specific, pal. We got too much of that evidence. You need to narrow it down. James Comer, that's what led to the studio audience bursting into laughter on that clip. Narrow it down. Okay, so James goes, all right, let's put a money threshold here for the payment. How about $5 million? Greenbacks, bucks. $5 million. That's our limit. Oh, okay, well, all right, here's your box. Guy smoking a cigarette at the window at the FBI. Here's your box evidence. I don't know, just been sitting around here. We know what it is. All right, we know what it is because we already know the whistleblower. Connect the dots. Not hard. The breadcrumbs are not hard. This is not a sophisticated operation. Bringing down the Clintons, now that would be a sophisticated operation. This ain't hard. This ain't hard. We already know the whistleblower, okay? So the whistleblower who has come forward to bring the details of this document to life, right? To give meat to the bones of this document, because this document is bones. This document is a guy in Ukraine. I'm going to set it up for you. A dude in Ukraine who works inside of the government is telling the FBI, hey, the Bidens are engaging in bribery inside of our government and inside of our country. There is a dirty scandal going on inside of this nation, and your vice president's not only in the middle of it, he's orchestrating it. So that's what the FBI picks up. They write that down in a form. So that's what the FBI has, okay? That's the FD 1023. What's the other side of that? What's the other side? The other side would be people inside of the Obama administration saying, hey, look at what Joe's doing over here. Joe is effectively pushing for policies that enrich his own family. This cokehead kid is on the board of a Ukrainian gas company called Bursima. That don't make no sense. Now, it will sure be handy to have the whistleblower from inside of the Obama administration. These people tend to protect their own, but luckily we do have that, in fact. Because this show, it's our noble and moral duty to create the chronology here for you. And because news moves so fast and so many people in the conservative tacosphere want to just like accept the fact that we have this corrupt jackass as president and not talk about this every single day, I will talk about it. I will talk about it until the day I die. Like, I will talk about it. I'll be bringing this up 60 years from now. I just turned 37. Lord willing. Here we go. I guess if Rupert Murdoch can run Fox at 97, then maybe the Benny Show will carry on. But here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We have the whistleblower. He went live on Fox News. This guy worked for Barack Obama. This guy was Obama's personal stenographer. One of them. There's a lot of them. But this guy worked with Barack Obama, hanging out with Obama, writing down everything he says. This is the guy's job. Make sure that there's a record of everything that's going on. You got to do that. You got to keep the records for the Library of Congress and so forth. And so there's stenographers everywhere in these things. I went and interviewed Donald Trump. There was a stenographer. We went and interviewed Donald Trump in the Oval Office. I sat there across from the Oval Office, writing it down. Okay. The guy who did that for Barack Obama was assigned to Joe Biden on a very specific Ukraine trip. And that guy had something very special to say as it pertains to Joe Biden and his business in Ukraine. He said it live on Fox. It did not get the coverage it deserved. You'll get it from us today because we care. Go.
Like, what went down on that trip that you're aware of?
Thanks for having me on, Jesse. Well, what happened on that trip was Joe Biden was in the front of the plane. My job as a White House stenographer was to be in the back of the plane in the press cabin. And if Joe or a senior administration official came back and did a briefing, and then I would record it and make a transcript. Well, that's exactly what happened. That senior administration official was Jake Sullivan, who's now our national security advisor. So I didn't see anything wrong with it at the time. Years go by. I've left the White House. I'm writing books, and I get a hold of the Hunter Biden laptop from Marco Polo. They're a nonprofit, anti-corruption nonprofit. About a year and a half ago, I started writing a Substack based on what I find. And then I go back over what I knew happened when I was working for Joe. I found the transcript that I wrote about that briefing. That's when Jake Sullivan starts talking about fracking. And because of what I'd read in the laptop and reported in my Substack previously, I'm like, wait a minute. Joe Biden knew Hunter Biden was already on the board on April 18th. Joe Biden knew. He directed Sullivan to go back and talk to the press. This is a conspiracy.
Wait a second. So Joe Biden, the guy who's for banning natural gas, remember, Joe Biden's against fossil fuels. Been against fossil fuels. Been totally against all of the development of fossil fuels anywhere in the world. It's all evil, right? Remember, we have a green energy future. And the only reason we have that is because we've all invested in green energy companies and we're going to force them upon you. So we can get rich. That's beside the point. Joe Biden suddenly becomes obsessed with fracking one day. Obsessed. Now we have the clip of Joe Biden saying, I'm going to ban fracking in America. Okay, so trust me. Hey, Alex, maybe you can drum that up. Trust me, this is not a guy who supports any type of fossil fuels or any type of fracking. Suddenly, Joe Biden becomes obsessed with fracking, but not America. Oh, no, not America. In Ukraine. Oh, yeah. One day, the flip gets switched. And I know who flipped it. You know who flipped it. And the stenographer just told us who flipped it. Hunter Biden gets hired by Burisma. Hunter Biden gets put on the Burisma, Ukrainian natural gas company, board. Run by a Ukrainian oligarch. His name is Kolomoisky. He also runs the banking system and the television system inside of Ukraine. This is how Eastern European oligarchs work. They just control literally everything. That's how the oligarchy system works. This is why we fight it here in America. This guy puts Hunter on his board, and then Hunter Biden takes Kolomoisky's number 1 and number 2 into the vice president's office. They leave. And now Joe Biden is obsessed with fracking in Ukraine. You see how that works? The anti-fracking, anti-fossil fuel guy suddenly is obsessed with fracking, but in Ukraine! As soon as his kid gets a job. Not only that, Joe Biden is great guns, balls to the wall, baby. Kool-Aid Man, Leroy Jenkins, through the window, through the floor, to the window and the wall. Well, that sweat dripped down your Air Force Two. Because he was on Air Force Two in a moment. This stenographer joined him. This stenographer said that on Air Force Two, Joe Biden, in a hastily planned trip, went to Ukraine to then go promise $60 million worth of American taxpayer dollars to develop natural gas in Ukraine when his damn kid was put on the board of the gas company. Not a minute before. Wow. Well, that seems a little unethical. And the stenographer, who, again, is a Barack Obama employee, said, not only is it unethical, I have the evidence that will put Joe Biden in jail or impeach him, whichever comes first. Go.
I went to the FBI and filled out their witness tip line. There's a website. You fill out all these tips, these web directions. I submitted it. If you lie to the FBI when you're submitting a tip like that, you can go to jail. I'm not lying. I'm telling the truth. Joe Biden is lying. Joe Biden is a criminal. That's the bottom line. I don't care if he goes to Timbuktu or Ireland or anywhere. He's a criminal. And I've got the evidence. If they put me in front of the grand jury that's right now seated in Wilmington with Special Prosecutor David Weiss, my testimony becomes the evidence that will put him in jail or will lead to his impeachment. Probably lead to his impeachment first.
So you're saying that Joe Biden wasn't going to Ukraine to fight corruption. Joe Biden was going to Ukraine to help the natural gas industry. At the time, he knew that his son was on the board of the biggest natural gas business conglomerate in Ukraine.
That's exactly right.
So why is that not the most seen clip in American history? Where is the coverage of this? Barack Obama employee who traveled privately and secretly with Joe Biden spills his guts about what's in this FD 1023 document. Has the circle been completed for you? It's our job here to educate. Has the circle been completed? There it is. Round and round we go. Joe Biden waits for his kid to get put on a Ukrainian gas company board. Joe Biden hits the crack pipe. I don't know if he does that, but he lost his teeth somewhere, so I don't know. Hits the crack pipe and goes, "We're going to Ukraine!" And they get on Air Force Two and they lavish taxpayer dollars on Ukraine to make sure his kid gets rich. Pay me money. You get American favors. It's not Joe Biden's money. It's the American government's money. It's funny money. It's Fugazi. It's not real. We'll just go, and we might as well get ours while we got the power. And there they go. The final little bit about it is that this was never supposed to come to light. Hillary Clinton was supposed to be president in 2016. Yeah, they would have gotten away with it if not for you meddling kids. Hillary Clinton was supposed to be president, man. And they were never going to investigate this. No one was ever going to find out. No one was ever going to ask another question. The simp Republicans in Washington, D.C. were just going to put their dog collars on and their gimp costumes and their ball gags and get dog walked by President Hillary. That was supposed to be the plan. And then Joe Biden was just supposed to go off into the sunset, right? He was already going off into the sunset. They had already forced him to not run against Hillary in 2016. They'd already put him out to pasture, dude. And the consolation prize was you can go be corrupt and get money, get like forever money for your grandkids. What grandpa wouldn't want to do that? And then Donald Trump happened, and everything changed. And now we're living inside of a very different, bizarro world than it's supposed to be. And you're starting to see the breaking, the snapping of the edifice at the FBI. And you're starting to see people who are pretty middle-of-the-road Republicans, like Mark Wayne Mullen from Oklahoma, pretty like centered dude, pretty middle-of-the-road guy. You wouldn't call him flamethrower. Mark Wayne Mullen going on and being like, hey, listen, this particular situation is starting to like truly break people's understanding of how the FBI operates. It's time to restructure the way that the FBI works. That's big talk there. Go.
This document has been declassified. We need to make that point because that protection of sources argument is now nullified. So what's your reaction to this brazen obstruction by the FBI?
Well, I don't know why we're surprised, right? Director Wray's boss is Garland. Garland's boss is Biden. Keep in mind, the FBI isn't completely independent. They fall underneath the DOJ. And Director Wray is very political. He's very smooth at pivoting. But his boss is directing is protecting Biden. And so what we have to do is really take a hard look at the FBI. The 7th floor of the Hoover building is absolutely corrupt. Now, the field agents, they do a phenomenal job. But it's time that we re-look at the way the FBI is set up. We have to hold people accountable, and no one's above the law. And right now, Director Wray is 100% protecting the Biden family.
So that's what they're doing. It's a political operation. This is an extension, an arm of the DNC. And the top officials inside the FBI, just like their predecessors, just like the people who groomed them, are unwavering in their protections of the powers that exists currently in Washington. And that has always been the FBI's role. Now, as we have covered from the Durham report, the FBI's role is to protect institutional power. That is the obligation of the FBI. Protect and insulate institutional power. If that power is right-wing, then the FBI becomes right-wing. If that power is against the Marxists, the FBI goes against the Marxists or the civil rights movement or whatever. This is the same FBI that sent suicide letters to MLK. We did a whole show on it. It's real. The FBI admits it. They wrote suicide letters to MLK in order to try and get the worst possible result for the man during the height of the civil rights protests, because they had him on tape cheating on his wife, orgies, and so on. They were recording it all. You could argue that that's immoral behavior, and MLK should not have done that. True. But it's also unconstitutional to spy on American citizens and send them suicide letters from the FBI. And that's what they did. From the first inception of the FBI, 100 years ago, when the FBI was brought about by an executive order, which, by the way, is still an executive order. Any president with any set of balls can walk in there and, with the stroke of a pen, be done with the FBI. Boom. It's an executive order. It's not the Constitution. The FBI isn't constitutional because our founders was like, wait a second, so George Washington have his own private police force that answers only to him? No. The answer is no. The president should not have a private police force that answers only to him, that can domestically terrorize the people of the United States. The president can have a military that can protect the United States. That's why he's the commander-in-chief. He should not have a private Gestapo. That's the way that our founders created this system. But 100 years ago, we decided to give the president his own private police force. And there you get the FBI. And from day one, they've been behaving as simps to power, protecting power, and they're doing that today. There's some comfort in knowing that it's always been the same, that it'll always be the same. And then there's also comfort in knowing that what you must do to break that system, you must break the FBI. Comer's all but saying it. Comer's saying, hey, listen, we got, like, Markwayne Mullins saying we have to rethink the way that the FBI is structured. Comer's like, we're going to bring in Christopher Wray. He's going to be held in contempt. The American people deserve to see this document. Go.
What would a subpoena look like in your view? Or contempt ultimately of Congress look like?
Well, we're still drafting, but it's going to look very similar to what the Democrats did with Steve Bannon. I mean, that was a perfect example of a congressional committee holding someone in contempt of Congress.
So they're going to Steve Bannon him. Well, tell you what, Steve Bannon got put in shackles for this. You know, Steve Bannon was held in contempt, and what did they do with that contempt charge? They pushed it to the DOJ in order to arrest Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon still faces those charges. Apparently, Steve Bannon is headed for sentencing, might even go to jail. We don't know. Stuck in limbo right now. But Steve Bannon was found guilty of contempt of Congress. They sent him to the DOJ into a D.C. court, and then that court was going to try it. Now, of course, Christopher Wray is not going to be found guilty. But this is smoke that you don't want to mess with, man. This is smoke right now that Chris Wray don't want. Also, the Biden administration doesn't want it either. Listen to this incredible moment from the podium at the White House yesterday, where John Kirby, the sleazy little flack for Joe Biden, because Cringe Jean-Pierre is just not cutting it. They bring in John Kirby, right? They drag in John Kirby, the greaseball slithering snake from the Pentagon, and they say, hey, John, why don't you take over for Cringe? And so he slimes up there, and a reporter from the New York Post, I believe, asked him this like absolutely devastating question. It goes like this: 53% of the public, including Democrats, believe Joe Biden was involved with his son in illegal influence peddling. What do you say to the majority of Americans who believe the president is corrupt? Ooh, oh, it's spicy. It's beautiful. And the answer itself is sacrilegious, takes the Lord's name in vain. It's also very cringe. And this is our cringe alert, ladies and gentlemen, for the day. Watch.
53% of the public, including a fourth of Democrats, believe, quote, Joe Biden was involved with his son in an illegal influence peddling scheme. There's, of course, evidence that the president interacted with his relatives, associates from China. Mexico, Kazakhstan, Russia, and Ukraine. So what do you say to the majority of Americans who believe that the president is himself corrupt?
Wow. Can I take that question?
The president has spoken to this. The president has spoken to this, and there's nothing to these claims.
Oh, this is the same face I use for my colonoscopy. Oh, it hurts. It's bad. It's very bad. It's not going to get better. It won't get better. Now, this is my final thesis on all of this. So my final thesis on all this. And again, we are joined by Julie Kelly very soon, who is just a fantastic writer and has been on top of this in the deep state cover-up, and specifically the story about January 6th. The January 6th footage, it's all going to Julie Kelly. So the person who has all of the January 6th footage, she's going to join us very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you my contention here. My contention here is this. They're going to do a switcheroo with Joe Biden. That's what I think. I think they're going to do a switcheroo. I think that the special counsel may find Joe Biden guilty of mishandling classified documents. I think that they have leverage over the man, and they're going to kick him out whenever they decide to kick him out. Right now, just maybe a little preliminary, and they're going to do a swapperoo with Gavin Newsom, Hillary Clinton, Michelle Obama. They got these people waiting in the wings. Hillary Clinton was out on Memorial Day doing interviews with people being like, I really hope that America chooses a wiser, smarter leader soon. Yikes. Why is Hillary Clinton doing these interviews, talking like she's on the campaign trail? Why is Michelle Obama trying to go out and sell a book to postmenopausal women? I don't know, man. I don't know. Seems shifty. Why is Gavin Newsom going so hard at Ron DeSantis? I don't know. And Donald Trump, obviously. I don't know. Makes you wonder. I think it's leverage. I think it's leverage. And if you understand how criminal organizations operate, and if you assume that your government is criminal, and it's very simple to find that out, all you have to do is ask two simple questions. One, does your government lie to you? Just go ahead and check the record during COVID. Find me something that the government was telling the truth about. Two, will the government deceive you in order, even if it means you get hurt? Well, yeah, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, there's a good one. But yeah, the government will deceive you, even if that means you get hurt. Just like a crime family, just like a mob would. The mob is like a crime syndicate. And they're protecting themselves. And they're protecting an arm of the crime syndicate. They're protecting the Bidens. They know that giving up this document will lead to a amputation of an appendage of this crime family. And so that's why they're fighting it so hard. Ladies and gentlemen, they've been fighting very, very hard to have the January 6th tapes not released. Tucker Carlson got a tasty treat. He got a chance to look at them. They tried to destroy Tucker Carlson's career for simply asking to look at these tapes. I think they actually ended up censoring Tucker Carlson and what he wanted to report, and I have pretty good sources on that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those tapes are going to go out, and they have gone out to new reporters, and you're going to want to see them when they drop. You're going to want to see this new information because there are people who are getting their teeth into these 45,000 hours of tapes, and it's going to be wild. When you see those drops, you're going to want to make sure that your cell phone is functional and operational. And that is why I use Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is America's most reliable mobile network. It's America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. It offers dependable nationwide coverage on all three major networks, and you get the best possible service in your area without the woke propaganda pushed by the left that is destroying this country. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny. Patriotmobile.com/Benny. You can get free activation today with the offer code Benny. Ask them about your coverage guarantee when you're there so that you can get the information that you need and begin to fight back, just like we do on this program with our favorite service. Ladies and gentlemen, patriotmobile.com/Benny. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got some bombshell stuff here. I'm very excited for what happens next. Marjorie Taylor Greene announced yesterday that there's going to be a release of the January 6th tapes. Marjorie Taylor Greene on Twitter saying effectively this. I think we have the tweet you can pop up there. I'm excited to share the good news. Just as I promised, the January 6th tapes are going to be released. Speaker McCarthy, John Solomon, and Julie Kelly. And a third outlet, unfettered access to the January 6th tape Their reporting on it starts tomorrow. This is the transparency the American people deserve. Look forward to their reporting. Named in that tweet from the great Marjorie Taylor Greene is Julie Kelly, who joins the program now. Thank you, Julie, for being on the program. This is the day that we've been waiting for. I am so proud. You've won. You've won. Congratulations. 3 years of fighting the behemoth, and now you are Goliath. You are David, and Goliath is in the dirt.
Well, thanks, Benny. Actually, it was 2 years ago this month. Well, actually, May, 2 years ago, May 2021, when I wrote my first article demanding the release of the footage because the government had filed an affidavit from the Capitol Police General Counsel claiming that all of this footage should be kept under tight protective orders because they had deemed it highly sensitive government material, which again raised flags even back then that something really nefarious was afoot. Why would the government want to keep all this footage away from not just the American people, Benny, but from January 6 defendants and their attorneys, who I have seen battle for 2 years in court trying to get access to the full trove of videos, not just the little snippets that the government puts together and gives them as discovery evidence. So I want to commend Speaker McCarthy. His office reached out to me in April, letting me know that I would have access to the footage. And this was because of Marjorie Taylor Greene fighting to give reporters like me access to this huge trove of video.
Wow. Okay, so we did reporting when Tucker Carlson got the initial bite of the apple here. Now, I am pretty sourced up in Tucker world. I got to tell you, I think that somebody put the brakes on what where Tucker was planning on going. That's my contention. I think that somebody put the brakes. Tucker was able to show some pretty huge bombshell revelations, among others that QAnon Chowman, so-called Jacob Chansley, was escorted through the building, that Ray Epps was in the crowd when he said he had left, that he had lied to the January 6th committee, and that there were obviously undercover agents all over the place inside of the Capitol. But then in the subsequent drops, it just became a sort of a rerun. And Tucker was stuck on screensaver mode. Are you going to be stuck on screensaver mode with this footage?
No, absolutely not. And I have no knowledge about what happened with Tucker's team. I was working with them behind the scenes as to places that they should look, certain timestamps in certain areas. So I'm not really sure what happened there. But I think this is why Speaker McCarthy gave reporters like myself, for American Greatness, and John Solomon, who of course runs his own outlet, and another reporter right now, he doesn't want his name out there yet. He's waiting for some of the clips, but we're with independent outlets. So we don't answer to, a big board of directors led by Paul Ryan or people who want to help the Biden regime promote this false narrative about January 6th. So luckily, no. We have unfettered access. And I do want to explain one thing to people, Benny. I think it's really important for your viewers to understand. This isn't like a VHS tape. It isn't even like, a DVD or something that they can just send to us. These are hundreds of cameras covering a huge, large area over days before and on and after January 6th. We have to go to Washington, D.C. to access the portals and click on certain cameras, log in what time we want to see, what we want to watch. It is an extremely laborious process. So I do want to say to people who are upset that, they haven't been publicly released, I don't really see a way, even though I called for it for 2 years, after seeing the system and how it's set up, I really don't see a way that can happen. So I do hope that they figure out a way in the future, short-term future, that they will make the relevant footage available. But for now, I think the public, at least our side, will be very satisfied, shocked, and surprised to see the clips and the relevant stories that will be coming out in a steady stream over the next several weeks.
Yeah, and forgive me, Julie, you've been a friend of the show for so long. I just have a bee in my bonnet about Tucker and about the way he was done dirty by Fox. And so, it just gets my ire up. I don't want to talk about speculation for something that you have nothing to do with. However, something that you do have to do with is now you have access You're the first person who's been on the show that can say, I have access. So talk us through it. You just gave us sort of a preview of what it looks like to go and access this footage. What are you seeing? What are you finding? What have you found? What can we expect? What new information?
I have seen some alarming footage that has not been made available to the American people. And without getting too ahead of myself or getting ahead of the other reporters who are going to be presenting their clips and their stories, I will say, as we've said all along, and you and I have talked about, the media's narrative, the Biden narrative about what happened, it just simply is not factually correct. The truth about January 6th is you had multiple things happening at multiple different locations. But the idea, for example, that police behaved heroically that day simply does not match up to the footage and, of course, testimony that I've watched in some of these court proceedings. And I think the American people will be very alarmed to see how police conducted themselves. This is Capitol Police, but mostly DC Metro Police, that they are the ones responsible. There you go. And we've seen most of the footage, Benny, as you see here, from body cam footage. But there's also a lot of surveillance video, especially in that lower West Terrace tunnel, that I was shocked to see. And I've seen a lot of footage from that tunnel. The storyline of how that all unfolded simply, it does not match up with what police have said, what the January 6th Select Committee has said. And no matter how hard it is for our side to admit that police acted badly, they certainly did for the most part. And this is one huge angle of January 6th that needs to be told to the American people. So that's just one part of it. And so things that were happening inside and outside, then that you had police who were doing nothing, who were chatting with protesters inside. We'll have a lot more of that footage. You have the left and Democrats and the media insisting that that didn't happen. Well, of course it did. So, which...
Can I stop you there? Chat. What do you mean by chatting?
They're engaging protesters who are inside the building, including there's new video that was just released last week in the case of Kelly Meggs, the Florida Oath Keeper who was convicted of seditious conspiracy, sentenced to 12 months in prison, Benny. He didn't assault anyone. He didn't bring a weapon. He did nothing. They released new video of him inside in military gear. Keep in mind, they were there to protect police, protect protesters who had been assaulted for 6 solid months in Washington, D.C. There are 2 police officers standing right by him. Kelly Meggs is helping shepherd people outside the building, and he's talking with police officers. How do you overthrow the government, wage war against the United States, which is seditious conspiracy, when you're helping police and they're standing there chit-chatting with you? He had no idea he was breaking the law. They never said, you need to get out of here. You're breaking the law. You're committing seditious conspiracy. So those are the sorts of things that not only the American people need to see, but Benny, they want to see. And polling time after time underscores the American public's desire to get more facts about January 6th.
How can you overthrow a government and stage an armed insurrection without any arms?
Such a good question. I mean, the Oath Keepers who did drive there from Florida or Texas or other states, legally bringing firearms with them as protection, they stayed in Virginia and left whatever firearms they legally brought in Virginia. So they did not violate Washington, D.C.'s very strict gun control laws. Now, what kind of insurrectionist does that? How can you have a militia that brings no artillery, no weaponry? But look, this is the banana republic style climate that is happening in the nation's capital. It is the legal, what I call legal and judicial circle of hell for these January 6th defendants who go up against a jury made up of voters who live in a city that voted 93% for Joe Biden. And not a single judge will move these trials out of Washington, D.C. So what I tell them is the truth is coming out. These clips and video segments will tell a far greater story. And I also commend the speaker for giving access to defendants and attorneys who have been prevented from seeing this full footage over the past now 2.5 years.
Yeah, I mean, it does deserve commendation from Kevin McCarthy. I mean, one, he's going to you, right? Who it doesn't, regardless of your political stance or who you support in 2024, you've been right. That's what's most valuable. That's how journalists should judge each other. Who's right and who's lying? And you've been right. And that's your job. And so you've been right on this issue when everyone else has been wrong and or propagandists. And then he went to Tucker Carlson. So that's a deep commendation. Final question for you, Julie, because I know you have a lot of work to do. Can you shed a little bit more light on Ashley Babbitt and about what may be found out as it pertains to the police? So you mentioned there a cursory that the police didn't behave the way that they posited themselves, right? Like, and we've seen the undercover footage coming out from various Metropolitan Police Department cameras. They were encouraging people in entrapment situation to go get up the scaffolding, get up the scaffolding. We played it like 40 times on the show. Get up the scaffolding, go, 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 go. That's encouraging people to trespass, which is what they booked half these people on, 90% of these people on, right? And so can you sort of give us a little more meat on those bones, like as it pertains to how the police and security forces behaved? The final follow-up to that is, do you think we'll ever see a charge for murder against Ashley Babbitt?
We absolutely will not see any charges. Of course, Michael Byrd, they dropped they claimed DOJ, Joe Biden's DOJ conducted an investigation into Michael Byrd. So did Capitol Police. They refused to bring any civil rights violation charges against Michael Byrd, like they often do with police officers involved in lethal force. He was like protected. I think he was hiding out in a military camp for months, being paid for by federal taxpayers. So they could keep his name under wraps for months until he did that interview with Lester Holt. I don't want to get ahead of the reporter who will be talking about and covering Ashley Babbitt, what happened to her after she was shot. But it's going to be very difficult footage for the public to see, particularly her family and friends. It's pretty shocking stuff.
And the first question up front, what behavior in the police officers, you talked about the corridor, what behavior do you think will shock the American people the most?
I think inside that tunnel, and we saw it in other areas of the Capitol, the beating of protesters with batons, including women, over their heads. This is a complete violation of police conduct. I mean, this is excessive force cases on numerous officers. You don't take a hard baton and beat a woman over the head repeatedly, or beat people in the face, or poke them in the face, kick them, stomp them, shove them. The police could have done a much better job. And I, again, don't want to get too ahead of myself. But what happened in that tunnel never had to happen. And the question is, why did it? And why did it happen so late in the day? And so that is one area that I will be focusing on. And I'm sure you'll have me back on when we get those clips up and talk through them.
Julie,
and
you're perma-booked on this show. Yeah.
These officers who have lied under oath, for example, a DC cop, Daniel Hodges, who referred repeatedly under oath to these people as terrorists. I've got news for you. The terrorists were not the Trump supporters that day.
Wow. Maybe you can figure out why it took so long for Nancy Pelosi to pick up the phone when Stephen's son kept calling and asking for there to be...
For days.
Yeah, maybe. Julie Kelly, you are absolutely one of the best. And you've been right. You've been right every step of the way. That's why you must follow Julie Kelly. Where can they follow your work?
I love hearing that I'm right. I tell that to my family all the time. Just say I'm right. Love it.
You've been right.
American Greatness, amgreatness.com. Also, as you know, I post a lot of breaking news on Twitter, Julie_Kelly2.
Julie_Kelly2. The account is right there on your screen. Punch that follow button. Let's get her to 500,000. Come on. 426,000, 500,000. You're going to want to follow. This is going to be the big breaking news account for the foreseeable future, ladies and gentlemen. And there's a reason why Kevin McCarthy trusted Julie Kelly, because she is just the best. Thank you.
Thanks, Benny. Thanks for covering my work.
Godspeed to Julie Kelly, who is just doing God's work here, ladies and gentlemen. And there are other organizations that are doing God's work. There are other organizations that are exposing some of the ugliest, most hideous, most uncomfortable things that you can expose in this world. Tonight, 10,000 photos from Hunter Biden's laptop will hit the internet. Boy, oh boy, buckle up, buttercup. Here we go. A trove of photos from Hunter Biden's laptop has been made available to the public through a new website that launches Thursday night. The website, BidenLaptopMedia.com, will house 10,000 photos spanning from 2008 to 2019. Took months to complete. Garrett Ziegler, the founder of the nonprofit Marco Polo, told Fox News Digital. It's taken us a couple months to, one, go through the photos, and 10,000 of them, and to redact the genitalia in the photos. Ziegler, a former Trump White House official, former Trump White House aide, correction there, said in the content of the laptop was owned by President Biden's son, and this will of course get rid of any propaganda that this might have been something that was planted by the Russians. Yikes. If you've seen a few of these photos, as I have, you'll want to wash out your eyeballs with bleach. The number one thing we're about is truth and transparency, said Ziegler. If the American people want to know what the first family is like, they're going to get it. And we're not going to be taking out photos that paint Biden in a good light. Okay, so they're going to keep the good with the bad. There are going to be redacted photos that includes nudity, which there's a considerable amount of, nudity of other Bidens. What the hell is that about? Why does Hunter Biden have other naked photos of other Bidens on his laptop? I don't know, man. Part of me doesn't want to find out. And other various illegal activities. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I suppose we shall find out even more as it goes on. Joe, you sure you want to run in 2024? You sure, pal? I don't think so. I don't think so. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. As ever, we will leave you with a psalm, with a piece of good news. It might have been disturbing, this show. The FBI certainly is not a force for federal investigation into anything that may cause pain or harm to their preferred political party, the powers that be. Julie Kelly says there are some horrific pieces of information that you are about to find out about January 6th that you didn't know, including what happened to Ashley Babbitt's body after she was murdered. You know, she was murdered. She's unarmed, murdered in cold blood. You know that, right? That she didn't do anything? Like they just shot her and killed her? Got it? Without warning? Got it. What happened to Ashley Babbitt's body afterwards? Well, Julie Kelly says you're about to find out. You may say, hey, Benny, you're getting black-pilled, and it's dark, and it's all pointless and all worthless. And the answer is no, it's not, actually. Other people have lived through dark moments in American life, darker than this even. And they've survived out of the providence of the palm of God's hand. So let that providence come and comfort you today from Psalm 27. One thing have I asked of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. Just let that be peace. Let that peace wash over you. Do you wake up? Do you pray? Do you look in the mirror and say, I shall not fear today? You know, fear not was written 365 times in the Bible. The words fear not. That's one per day. And you can say that. You can look in the mirror and say that to yourself every single morning. I fear not. And you can read verses like this. You can dwell in the house of the Lord. You can be at peace. Remember, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. That's why our souls long for the spiritual and long for the eternal. And we may not have justice in this life, but we shall see justice in the life after. That's a promise. Just like your boy Benny being here every morning for you. That's a promise. God, family, country. That's how we structure our lives on this show. It's the Benny Brigade. Back at it again. See ya.